We can start the event in next 1 minute. To inform everyone, we are live on YouTube. Thank you. Yeah, we can start.
All right, Benita, thank you very much. Warm welcome, everyone. All that I can say is that if all the participants are from the real estate sector, you will have to keep yourself happy with the top headlines from the budget and not the nitty-gritties. Seems like the budget has missed the trees for the wood, at least when it comes to real estate. Having said that, I think the finance minister was extremely confident in delivering her speech, and at least when she pointed out to the fact that India is on a track of growth, which is solid. But let me ask our participants on what they felt. Let me welcome all the panelists, Shri Boman, who's the president of MCHI and also the CEO of the Rustomjee Group. We also have with us Hiten, Kotak partner at PwC. We have with us Anuj, Puri, chairman of ANAROCK, and Vipul, Roongta, MD and CEO of HDFC Capital. So pretty much every corner of the real estate sector covered between these four gentlemen. So let me begin with you, Mr. Hiten Kotak, because, is there anything at all that you saw from this union budget that we can celebrate with all the participants who joined us from the sector today?
Manisha, you are right. For the sector per se, there is not much to rejoice, particularly in light of the fact that there was a lot of expectation, and rightly so. There were several things which could have been corrected, which possibly have been missed out. I would say once again, that way, if we see the direct changes relevant to the real estate sector, I would say there are only two changes in the taxation of real estate related transaction. One is for the long-term sale of properties. The surcharge has been capped at 15%. What it means is that at the highest level of income, tax, which was 28.5%, has been reduced to 24%. So that is one change, which is, I would say, direct. The second change is related to the TDS, tax deducted at source, which is, as all of us know, 1% on the value of the transaction. So whether the developer sells it or there is a secondary sale. Hello. Yeah. Or there is a secondary sale, there is a 1% withholding tax, TDS, on the transaction value, which was earlier on the transaction value. Now it is on transaction value or reckoner value, whichever is higher. So the 1% is now on transaction value or reckoner value, whichever is higher. And Manisha, if you permit,
which according to me is negative, Hiten. If the ready reckoner is in most of the markets higher, or in many of the markets, I won't say most of the markets, higher than the actual value of real estate in that market. So this is, in fact, the industry had been asking for the fact that please don't tax us if there is a difference between ready reckoner and the actual market value of our sale.
Yeah, so definitely this is negative, and that takes us to possibly, Manisha, if you permit me, on the what has been missed out. And as you rightly said, for many years now the sector has been saying that reckoner values are sometimes not realistic, and therefore the tax on under section 43 CA, which presumes the reckoner value to the sale value in the hands of the developer, the developers were very keen that that should be removed. In the hands of secondary seller, the similar section was 50C. And therefore, there was a demand of eliminating or deleting section 50C, which has not been done. In the hands of the purchaser, there is a tax under section 56 to 10 on the difference between the actual transaction value and the reckoner value if the reckoner values are higher. That also kind of has not been deleted. So that double taxation, which is, tax on the notional income under 50C in the hands of the seller and 56 to 10 in the hands of the buyer is a double taxation on notional income. That also kind of continues as is. And to kind of rationalize that mistake, now they are saying that withholding tax also has to be on the higher of the two. Therefore, the mistake, however, continues, or the irrationality of having reckoner values not so unrealistic, and the impact of that on taxation continues. So you're right, Manisha. That's not a positive thing, but that's a change. Pertaining to the
thank you so much for pointing that out, Hiten. Let me go to the other participants as well. All right. At least we heard a little bit, Vipul, on affordable housing. 48,000 crore in FY23 under PMAY. But I'm looking at PMAY and saying it really doesn't help players like you, does it, who are so committed to affordable housing? That's urban housing. And I think most of the PMAY money and the numbers that the government seems to be clocking are really the non-urban homes or single homes on, in independent land units. But decode it for me. Am I reading this wrong?
Yeah, so I'll not mince words. I'll say that emphatically you are wrong. First of all, PMAY, a significant portion of it is happening as urban. And urban does not mean, maybe in the context of this group, urban does not mean a Bombay or Delhi. Urban means, say, the top 20 cities. A significant portion of PMAY housing is happening in urban areas. A. B, while we all look at budget, but I think one thing which I have seen personally is that over the last 4 to 5 years, what was budget used to earlier be where all the direct and indirect tax concessions or whatever amendments were happening. It's more of a policy statement that was being done. Now I think it is becoming, because these policy changes are happening across the entire year, and it is becoming more a thing, I would say, of intent. And if you come on the intent part, two things which are very easily coming out, and I'll come back to your question on affordability. But two things which are very clearly coming out is A, focus on digitization, whether it is on MSME, cross-linking the 4 data banks that they have on the MSME, whether it is the blue-collar worker-related stuff, again, cross-linking of those databases with the eShram portal and so on and so forth. Or for that matter, in real estate's perspective, this registration focus on trying to see if you can actually register anywhere and have a single registration. Trust me, and everybody who is on the call, who is part of this webinar, who is a developer, seller, buyer, whatever, registration process is exactly what it used to be 50 years back, barring the fact that it's got digitized. But the cumbersomeness of registration is still very, very high. And why can't we have a single setup for registration? I think it's a very strong statement. Yes, it is still a statement, but so were a lot of these other things. For example, you mentioned affordable housing. Affordable housing was a statement 6 years back. It was basically part of your conferences, Manisha, and good for conferences, bad for business kind of a topic. Today it is mainstay. Everybody wants to do it, and people are making tons and tons of money in the private sector.
So very quick question, the 48,000 crore, and my question emanated from that one, Vipul. Does it help increase the stock of urban housing in the segment that you play?
Definitely. Okay. So as HDFC, 48,000 is supply side financing. So the entire the mortgage market, because ultimately people who are buying those homes, there is a mortgage play attached there. So that has its own ripple effect on the entire market. I think it's a great statement. It's a great initiative on continuing this entire thing of 48,000 crores. Also, what Hiten talked about, reduction in tax. It's a very steep tax reduction. 4% on a 28% tax is almost 15% reduction in tax. So while yes, as a developer, I may not be directly impacted in terms of my profits or, Section 80 not getting extended as a affordable housing developer. But if I am selling and buying land, the simple tax that I'll be paying more than in long term is 15% lower, which is a big number.
Okay. So at least those two are positives. Let me move on now to Boman. Boman, so, I think what the direction that Vipul is talking about, one land, one registration, is also what I saw in your quote that you've issued to media. How exciting is that? And there's one more thing which I tweeted, which, came surprisingly in the budget, but to me, Center can only give a direction on it. It seems to be a state subject. FM in her speech said, for urban capacity building, modernization of building bylaws, town planning, transit-oriented development will be implemented. So is this a direction to the state which you welcome? So I know I should, as a good anchor, not ask two questions together, but let's take the one land, one registration, and we'll follow it up with what your views are on the second one.
So thanks, Manisha. One land, one registration is something that it's a great intent, like Vipul has stated. And we are looking forward to its implementation because devil lies in the details, right? But definitely, like Vipul said, there is a direction and the budget is more about an intent and how the government wishes to kind of treat this industry. I think that we should take as positive. Second, Manisha, with regards to your, sorry, what is the second question?
Urban capacity building, modernization of building bylaws, town planning, and transit-oriented development will be implemented. This, to me, can only be a direction to the state because these are all state subjects.
Exactly, but then when the center has a larger plan, most of the states find it more economical or beneficial to align with the center. So that will obviously help. Manisha, I would like to start off somewhere differently. So while the budget has not given any direct impetus to our business, what it has done is it has added a whole lot of slew of activities that would benefit or better the lives of people, including the PMAY housing that you just asked people about. My way of looking at this is sometimes no news is good news. Okay. The point is the markets are performing. We are able to go out there and make a difference to the people's lives. Consumers have got the same buying power they had last year. Probably this will allow them to continue investing in businesses. There are no new taxes that have been imposed on the people. So this itself is a feel-good factor. I saw the stock market gave a 848 points increase to the budget. So all these speak the mood of the people. And when the mood is generally right, you find that housing is able to play a better role or a bigger role in going ahead and supplementing the government's revenues. Also, a very important point, which I think Hiten would have touched upon, is that, yes, they did miss out on some key deliverables, which may not have affected, let's say, the coffers of the government, but would have been a huge relief to our home buyers. And one of them, which we've been asking for a long time, Manisha, has been, we've been asking for a size-related affordable housing, definition. So far they had, 45 lakhs as the ceiling. What we said is you can have 60 square meters in urban metros and you can have 90 square meters everywhere. And that should be the guiding light for affordable housing because prices are different across the country. And, as you know, in all the 5 metros, you may not find a home that is buildable in the 45 lakh kind of price range. And, it doesn't really help anybody's cause. As a matter of fact, the government has just restricted themselves to 60 meters and 90 meters. There'd be a lot more business, which would be good for everything, including the 256 industries that are directly related to us in the real estate market. So that I would say is a miss. But like I said, we still believe that we can add a lot more value given that there is no deterrent or there is no detriment or no additional taxes that have come on to the people. And we believe that the good run can continue for a longer period of time.
I'm glad that you're so hopeful, and I hope so, because the January numbers of Mumbai registration showed a little bit of a dip. I'm sure it's just a blip. People were on a vacation. But Anuj, Puri, I mean, we did a whole discussion pre-budget and the list was very long. And I kept saying this, that the finance minister must be reading all the fantastic reports from ANAROCK, sales up 70% in top 7 cities, etc. And she must be wondering, do I really need to do anything? The party is anyway on. And now the industry has come a full circle in saying that, chalo, kuch nahi kiya, koi baat nahi, lekin kuch gadbad to nahi kiya. There's no downside. At least the feel-good factor remains. There are no extra taxes, though I would worry if there were any extra taxes after 2 years of COVID. But, we're kind of just looking at the stock market and saying, hopefully the good mood will continue and the momentum for housing will continue. Do you think it will?
3-4 things, Manisha, I would say is directionally, I thought it was quite consistent. I agree with what you said is, Manisha, that, some of the asks that we had, which Boman also enumerated, didn't come through. But directionally, if you look at it, it was about affordable housing. It was about policy. It was about macro. It was about some specific asset classes like data centers, logistic parks that they wanted to put in a lot of impetus on. On the housing, they have been very consistent over the last sort of 7-8 years that it has to be affordable housing, that 48,000 as Vipul explained on the PMAY. Not only that, Manisha, there was one other statement that the Honorable Finance Minister said is that she said is also we're going to get involved with the states on how we can reduce the time for land and construction of affordable housing. Again, to the point is that how Centre is going to now get into with the state, one will need to see it, similar to the point that you earlier raised, that on the urban capacity building, that Centre is going to get involved with the states on how they're going to be able to build the urban planning, urban capacity, so that tier 2, tier 3 cities benefit out of that. So directionally, very good. Macro, superb. Some of the asset classes which they wanted to touch, which was largely on the logistics and data centers, getting infrastructure status is sort of a big thing. I would say is finally, from my point of view, the question that you asked, Boman, on how Centre is going to implement, when you were asking, the thought crossed my mind, Manisha, just the way that Centre was able to push RERA through the states, just the way that they are now pushing the Model Tenancy Act into the states. So, similarly, there will be an approach that how do you crunch the timeline for getting the land approvals if you're doing affordable, and how do you get in more, quicker approvals on building for affordable housing? I think it has been the ask from CREDAI for some time now that, how do you differentiate? How do you bring the benefit? Vipul is absolutely right, Manisha. It's a very interesting point. And, at some stage we should debate that is actually affordable housing started from a social cause. But he's absolutely right. Today, it is making profit. So private enterprises are making profit on that affordable housing. And if we can continue to bring efficiency, Manisha, by bringing in quicker approvals on land and building, then it will attract even many more private developers within the affordable housing. And half the job of the government is then done, because the private sector is pretty enticed to get into the affordable housing play.
Well, that's why Vipul has raised bucket loads of money, isn't it? Because it has actually become a little profitable, not little, quite a bit profitable. But anyway, let's come back to, couple of things which I noticed on the top line. Of course, real estate we'll continue to talk about, but the fact that the government has increased total expenditure to 39.45 trillion rupees, I think, has been very well received by the stock markets. And I think one of the journalists, Ira Duggal, she did her numbers and she said the subsidy portion seems to have gone down and capex seems to have increased. So I think overall that should give that big boost that the economy needs. So that feel-good factor, I agree with all of you that yes, I think that this itself has been a very big positive for the stock markets. But to me personally, the fact that the home loan deductions did not move even a little bit, the needle didn't move even, and it's been years. I think it's been 7 to 8 years that we are stuck at 2 lakh deduction on a home loan interest, that was a big disappointment. But Hiten, there is a question from CA Manish Gupta. I'm going to keep throwing in a few questions from our live audience as well. He wants to know, is there any amendment in section 80 IBA for completion of projects in 5 years from the date of first CC, and due to COVID, actually many projects have not been completed in 5 years. I think it's an important one. Have you been able to look at the fine print? Is there an answer to this? Hiten?
See, the section didn't provide a date of completion. It provided date of approval of the projects and gave 5 years to complete the project. The date of approval which was stated was 31st March 2022. So we still have, I would say, less than 2 months to get some approvals. And the project can be completed for up to 5 years, but there has been no extension to this, whereas there have been some extensions to other things like new manufacturing company, etc. But there is no extension on this because of COVID or otherwise.
I thought, Manisha, there will be some extension given on that one, because you do require. So I don't know. I'd love to know Vipul's thought on this, Vipul. That I would have thought that this was sort of quite easy to extend, that timeline from 31st March, at least by a year more.
But I think Vipul said we could hear something later. Everything, we shouldn't be pinning all our hopes on the budget. Vipul, what do you feel? Because this is very relevant.
I like, if you see in last 12 months, it is, the last budget till now, so many policy initiatives have been announced. So many changes have been made. So I seriously feel that it makes no sense to say that just because it has not been done on 1st February does not mean, or it means that it is not being thought upon or it is not getting done. Just a parallel point,
except that Vipul, this is a change not in the policy, but directly related to the tax law. So unless it gets a kind of introduced before the budget is passed by both the houses, in between the year kind of an amendment, a policy change does happen, but in between amendments to the tax law are kind of unusual.
No, fair enough. But Hiten, let me just try and flip it. Manisha said at the beginning of this, we should have a little bit of fun. So let me, Manisha, just maybe ask you something about, you mentioned something about deduction on interest on home loans. And that has been there for 7 to 8 years. So it's slightly lesser than that, but yeah, notwithstanding that aspect. On one hand, we are saying that we want to increase the limit of 45 lakhs to say 75 lakhs or 1 crore. The other hand, what is the impact that our increase in deduction from say 2 lakh to 2 lakh 10,000 make to the entire scheme of things? A 10,000 rupee deduction means at a lower income tax slab, I'm saving 3,000 rupees a year. That is what it means. So if at all it is being done, it is catering to everybody that Boman mentioned at the beginning, which is not, or you mentioned, which is not in the urban areas, and it is in the rural and semi-rural areas. Because we can't have a situation that increase in tax on home loans increases demand in urban areas, but because you give 5,000 rupees more to that person to pay the EMI per annum. I seriously
really, it works out that low?
That's what it comes to.
But
yes, it makes a huge difference beyond the top 5 cities.
Yeah,
it makes a huge difference beyond the top 5 cities.
No. But Vipul, what if it was taken from 2 lakhs to 5 lakh rupees, right? That is where
then it's okay. That's okay. But it took, I think, some 4-5 years to go from 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs. So
yes,
2 to 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs is a different ballgame. But if you increase it by 2 lakhs to 50,000, even if it is a 50,000 bucks, the point I'm making is that sometimes some of the things become slightly cliched, and they also becomes not so relevant from the context of, say, suburban housing that we are talking about. It has huge impact. It has huge impact if a house is for 20-25 lakhs. Then yes, having 500 rupees per month more of 1,000 rupees per month more in my pocket makes a huge difference.
Or just shift from 2 to 5 lakhs. At least that was my hope and expectation. But any which way. Very interestingly, we have another question. And in fact, I was going to come to this question also. What are we expecting now on the interest rate cycle and home loans? Because that is one headwind that everyone is very aware of. Boman, the input inflation, which all developers are dealing with. It's not in any which way benign at all. We have a situation where oil prices have started rising again, above $90 to a barrel. The global economy is in a little bit of a jitter with inflation creeping in everywhere, and interest rate cycle definitely is turning around in the US. Do you think that we could see that happening in India as well? At least 1 or 2 interest rate hikes before the end of FY23? And my question is, if that happens, could it stop the party of the home sales? Or it's really, again, like Vipul said, these are tiny little changes which will happen, and therefore we shouldn't even worry about them too much?
Manisha, largely speaking, if the interest rates does go up just like about 200 bips or something like that, I don't know, if the market would be able to kind of be very happy about it. So one of the key things that is happening today is that the interest rates are low, and that kind of makes it a lot more affordable for most people to go out there and instead of putting their money in banks, etc. They're looking at buying homes. I'm not entertaining this idea, given the fact that costs of doing business are going up. With every compliance, the cost of business is cost of doing business is going up. With every increase in the cost of the raw materials, the costs are going up. So basically, to take care of the rising costs, I would hope that at least the interest rate continues to be where it is. Vipul, you should be able to throw more light on that. I wouldn't be too happy if there were any, psychological hits also taking place to the market, because home buying is also very, very driven by, let's say, there's a great period, things are going well, economy is going to do beautifully, which I think, we are reading that the economy is going to grow at some better
8.4%. 8.4%,
which are all feel-good factors. And like I mentioned earlier, the very fact that you've not increased taxes would allow people to kind of take a higher salary and then not be paying, let's say, more in taxes this year, and that kind of money would come into homes. Another thing is also the government's expenditure. I mean, when you have this kind of money being spent, a lot of it does go into the system, which by itself becomes buoyant, and that also would help in terms of the home buying process. But over to you, Vipul. I think you should answer the question on interest rates.
Okay, see, again, keeping in line with the spirit of what Manisha mentioned, I would look at it from more of a, Manisha, you're talking interest rate more on a demand side. Let me talk from a supply side perspective. Today, the biggest offtake of credit is in home loans, in the retail sector. It has always been the biggest. But if you see the statements of the top 6-7 banks and the housing finance companies, or top 7 players which are doing housing loans, they all are saying that they are growing. They all are saying that they want to expand at a big pace, obviously keeping in line with the market. And while, yes, the cost of funds may change because of a lot of other factors, couple of them that you mentioned, Manisha, I think the competitive factors is also a very big thing. And in the event where the corporate offtake of credit is not so big, a lot of banks are focusing on increasing their mortgage books. A lot of housing finance companies like HDFC, we are very, very focused on this entire segment. So there is fair bit of action happening, and that competitive pressures will keep the interest rates in check.
But, I was also surprised, maybe this must be for the industry and not home loans, that came out in the economic survey that, private banks and finance companies have been very stingy in passing on the rate cut benefits. But I think it's more from a corporate debt and corporate loan scenario. But here's another question, and Hiten, you might want to take it. It's in the chats. Just give me a moment to open this one. Very interesting question. Ranjit has asked, is there any extension on PMAY, CLSS or PPP beyond December 22nd? Now, at least CLSS is a policy matter and not a tax matter. Hiten, you want to take that question? We can expect that later. I mean, that announcement of CLSS getting extended can come in even beyond the budget, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear or read about any such extension, but yeah, that can come later, as people keep saying that policy changes will keep happening. Like, I mean, we don't need a budget for that or a finance bill for that. Like,
Vipul, are you hearing anything from the ministry? Is the CLSS likely to get extended to 2023?
Nothing on either side, yeah.
Okay. Then another very interesting question, Mukesh Jakar wants to know, just wanted to know, is it true that stamp duty will increase from 6% to 7% in affordable projects? I have completely missed this. Anybody has
I
noticed
don't think
this?
so, Manisha. I don't think so.
Anuj?
I think if anything, it should be the other way around. Boman should be able to throw more light on it. But, I don't think that the government or any state government would have the courage to do this by increasing the stamp duty. I mean, whatever we hear, Maharashtra had done this, then, Karnataka did it, West Bengal has currently done it, where they have brought down the stamp duty for affordable housing. So I dare say that stamp duty on affordable housing is going to go up. I don't think so.
Then
And
Anuj, let me come to a very important question. Or you want to continue? You carry on.
Sorry, I was just going to continue, Manisha, because the interesting point that you asked Boman and Vipul was on this interest home loan. Apart from the money, it is also the sentiment. So, if the home loan rates start to go up, suddenly we see the sentiment going down very, very quickly. And, on top of it, Manisha, you haven't yet asked the question, but, at some stage, we should ask Boman, are the prices going to go up? Given what he alluded to on the inflation and the input cost going up, at some stage, the prices are going to go up. If at that stage, the interest rates on home loans start to go up, suddenly that becomes very difficult for the home buyer to be able to fit the property within the budget that they have. And that's what my fear is, that input cost going up, interest going up, can it spoil the party that is going on today?
Well, that is the thin ice you've been talking about, Boman. You want to take it? I'm looking at the demand and saying it's still, look, we've come back very sharply from the worst of the first quarter of 2020. We still haven't hit the pre-COVID levels, and we're still far away from the 390,000 units that we used to sell in the top 7 cities. So Anuj had mentioned this in the pre-budget show that I did on NDTV, that we're, this demand is resting on very thin ice. You're skating still on very thin ice. Do you believe that is true? And either of these factors could actually create a reversal in the home buyer sentiment? Boman?
Sentiment is a very important thing, like I mentioned earlier also, when a home buying decision takes place. Today, the enthusiasm amongst the people, and I can speak for the government of Maharashtra and what they've done with the reduction of stamp duty, you saw a mad rush to go out there and buy homes. Of course, that was aided by the fact that developers had held their prices for a very long time and prices weren't going up. Also, the fact that you had a 6.5% rate of interest available from financial institutions towards home buying. Now, when you take any one of these factors and start playing with them, I'm not sure which part of it, like you said, Jan saw probably the lowest numbers of registrations in a long time, and it could just be that people were on holiday. But if you play with any one of these factors, you may see a setback in, at least, let's say, or a pushback in terms of the buying decision of people. But I'm looking at it this way, that a developer who's been holding on to his cost for such a long time, in spite of the increase in commodity or in terms of his raw material prices, has been able to do this largely thanks to, again, the government putting up, a 50%, I'm again talking about the Maharashtra government, putting up a 50% payment of premium schemes. And premiums play a very heavy part for us, at least in the MMR in Mumbai. And when that 50% came through, there was again some more cushion where a developer could absorb the prices. Otherwise, what I hear from my fraternity across the country is that they're not able to kind of absorb the prices anymore. They will, and there are already increases taking place as much as 5 to 15%. And these could go even higher as the time goes along. I'd like to say this again and again, this does not line the pockets of the developer. He's not making more money. The only thing that he's doing is he's kind of, not being able to absorb his cost anymore. And that's how he's adding the prices. Will it have an impact? Of course, it will have an impact, Manisha.
Having said that, Anuj, I'm beginning to see at least good developers and sectors which are, in high demand. Prices have gone up. Developers have been able to raise. Bangalore developers are openly saying that, yes, we've raised prices by about 8 to 15%. So good developers, good locations. I think there is pricing power, at least for now in the market. Anuj?
Absolutely, Manisha. If you look at it, over the last 5 years, the developers haven't increased the prices. And you look at, Manisha, the inflation, 5-6%, whatever that inflation was, salaries have continued to go up over the last 5-6 years. Bonuses have been paid over the last 5-6 years, yet the property prices have remained largely stable. So the ability of the buyer today to pay a little extra is very much there. Now, how much is that? Is it between 5 to 15%, or can it become 15 to 25%? I think that is where the question is. 5 to 15%, Manisha, I do feel is that the ability of the buyer is there. Today, because over the last 5 years, the salaries have gone up, their income has gone up, but the property prices didn't go up, and it's more of a catch-up. But I think beyond that, it may become difficult if the prices were disproportionately to go up.
Okay. Hiten,
sorry, let me add
to
it.
Go ahead.
With the stamp duty part of it, I just want to state that the government of Maharashtra had given a fantastic stamp duty relief. I think before that, just before the government of Maharashtra announced that stamp duty will be 2% for a particular period and 3% up to March of 21, there was a 1% development cess that used to be charged on it. So we were paying about 6% in the city of Mumbai. That was waived off. That comes back into effect on the 1st of April this year. So yes, stamp duty will be up by 1%, whether it's affordable or otherwise. The development cess will apply. And so again, a word out there to all the buyers would be that in case they're looking at buying homes, they should do it before the March quarter ends and register their homes before that quarter ends. Sorry.
In fact, Ram Reddy Gumi is also posted on the chat that even in Telangana, stamp duty has increased from 6 to 7.5%. So there are some states who are risking it, Anuj, despite the fact that nobody should actually temper with anything on affordable housing. But I think Telangana, I don't know whether it's a blanket, I'm not aware of it, whether it's a blanket increase, but yes, some states have even taken that step. Okay, let's come to now, I think we've more or less discussed the budget, but one of the big demands from the industry, and it can happen anytime in the year, the GST Council will meet. And Boman, you want to take on the point of this input tax, and somewhere the government has to realize that this is just too much inflation that the developers are taking, and at some point they will pass it on, and if demand goes down in housing, it's going to affect 250 plus sectors. So we can do that. I mean, that's not dependent on the budget. The GST Council can still take cognizance of it, right?
As a matter of fact, Manisha, it is now in the hands of the GST Council itself, and we've been reaching out to them time and again. Look, over here, Vipul will be able to tell you more in terms of the affordable housing projects are the ones taking the major hit. When you wind up paying 18% on all your goods and services, that is everything from the lawyer you hire to the architect that you kind of, get the plans made of from, to all the materials that you buy, to every contract that you sign, this 18% is a huge cost, right? Add to that, let's say it's GST that a customer pays, whether it's 5% on the rest of the housing and 1% on his affordable housing, it is still an added cost. And a developer is not able to kind of, adjust for input tax, which according to me defies the entire concept of the GST itself. GST was made with kind of an input tax credit in kind of the thinking, which is absolutely gone out for housing. I think we've been saying this to the government, but at one point of time, because of the fact that we were involved in this decision and we thought it would be a lot better, the government is not being able to take a rational decision, I would say. We will continue asking for it. We continue to give papers that define what exactly is the additional cost and where it can be rationalized. Our demand or our request to the government would be, you can give both the options. You can give the 5% without input tax credit, or you could give we would say not 12%, but 9% with input tax credit to make it a lot more affordable.
Vipul, you agree that's a valid ask of the industry, and it is going to actually affect affordable housing developers housing the most?
Ma'am, Boman is the president of MCHI. I cannot not agree with everything he says. So I have to agree on some points. This point is a valid point, absolutely.
Okay.
I like that. So you agree with the rest.
So then my
Not
question is,
valid point.
it was a valid point, and here we have a finance minister has already said that, I'm going to keep the fiscal deficit steady at 6.4%. There's a lot of hard juggling to do if they also start looking at slashing GST. I mean, I think they should do it because it'll ultimately help everybody and therefore the sector and the economy. But it's a difficult decision, isn't it? At this point in time to
No, I think
down GST.
Boman put it very rightly. 3 years back, the industry only proposed this. What Boman is saying makes a lot of logical sense, that it should be the A or B kind of a situation. And yeah, the sooner it happens, the better it will be, especially for anybody who is selling in a sub 5,000 rupees square foot range.
And Manisha, to add to what Vipul is saying, or to your question, that how does she handle the fiscal deficit if she kind of slashes taxes? It has been historically seen that every time the taxes have reduced, the collections have actually improved. And case in point being our, collection in Mumbai. No, stamp duty is one. Even the premiums collection that BMC did. Every single time the state thought that the collections would go down. How would they manage their coffers? But we've seen, I would say, a 5 times, if not more, increase in the collections by just a reduction in the premiums. So this should give us some encouragement to kind of accept that if the taxes are too high, people try to find ways around it. But if they are kept rational, then more and more people would be happy to come into the tax net and keep working in the long term, or like they say, on a highway, rather than trying to take side roads.
Hiten, expect anything at all from the GST Council for real estate, or at least on, 9% versus 18%, balancing the two?
Looks difficult. As Boman rightly pointed out, the sector itself wanted a certain kind of position, which at some point in time when the sector was in real difficult situation, they were granted kind of their wish. So in the current year, I would believe it is difficult for the FM to take that decision, but one would wait and watch.
Okay, so let me conclude by asking, I don't think there are any more questions I can't see anymore, but let me then take a concluding remark from each one of you on how you see the next 12 months for, there is one question, hold on. I'm not able to get to the Q&As. Yes. Okay, Keshav Chaudhary, long question. Is there any relaxation in RERA registration compliance for developers? I'm not even, Keshav, going to ask that question because I don't think that
you should entertain the question from the point of view that RERA, of course, is doing a lot more. No.
It's a budget discussion, but okay, go ahead, take it, Boman.
It is something to do with the cost. Every time the compliance increases, right, and the compliances are increasing rightfully because developers need to follow certain guidelines. But every time that there is a compliance increase, what you see is the cost goes up by that much more. So that's going to be another thing that we would have to pass on to the developers, to the home purchasers. So having said that, Keshav, I think we can, just understand the drift of it and not go into the rest. But yes, there are going to be increases in.
And no disregard or disrespect to Keshav. The only reason I said let's not ask that question is because it's a budget discussion and they seem to me totally out of the purview. But yes, understand it. So that's answered.
Developers have to say.
Absolutely. Hence, so let me read out what he's written, and I think it's a good one because due to last 2 years COVID scenario, many small developers facing challenges in fundraising for land acquisition or project plan approval. Therefore, it's taking long time to start construction, leading to more cost burden on the small developer. Some relaxation in RERA compliance for small developers would help them start the project and go for sale of properties. Anuj, your view, you're dealing with the home buyer.
So Manisha, on this one, you're right. It is outside the budget purview. And I think the RERA authorities are quite sympathetic to what's going on. And they're also very pragmatic with their approach. Certainly the Maharashtra RERA regime. And, they are taking cognizance every time there has been disruption in the business. They have taken cognizance and they have increased the time limits. to allow the developers to be able to deliver within the timeline that has got extended because of the disruption that has happened. So we will see is how it goes. But I mean, from my perspective, the RERA authorities, certainly in Maharashtra, very progressive, very pragmatic, very understandable, approachable, and very much business-like. So I have no real concern on that.
Absolutely agree, and I don't think we can turn back the wheels and try to go regressive. I think with the advent of RERA, what we've seen is a lot of home buyers have a lot more confidence and go out there and put their money. I think it only adds to your business when you increase transparency. And I would say that while we cannot turn back those wheels, Maha-RERA has been extremely pragmatic, like Anuj has put it. You actually go to them with an issue and they are very business-like in their approach. They understand the issue, they kind of they give you a timeline for sorting out. But then at the end of the day, I would prefer that they continue on the path that they have, started off.
Okay. Yes, I think that was the last question. So concluding remark from you, Boman, we are on you. So what are you hopeful for? I should say, in the next 12 months.
So the excess capex that is being put into the system will add to, let's say, the overall, money in the system. That's always good for real estate. At the same point of time, like I mentioned, no additional taxes, yet the earning power of the consumer has gone up. So that's another good reason for my home buyers to continue buying. And most importantly, like I mentioned earlier, no news is sometimes good news. And the very fact that there is so much infrastructure coming along and so much of urbanization taking place, I would say that overall, my personal wish would be that at least for the next year, we can look at certain things like the interest, increase in taxes on account of the interest paid. But otherwise than that, we're okay to go this year, and we will see the continued demand because there really is an on-ground demand for homes at least.
Vipul, of course, that affordability chart, I recently did a seminar on investing in buying real estate, residential real estate for Ashoka University students. And I used that chart on affordability, right? Which is there in HDFC annual report or quarterly investor report. So, we are at a good point in terms of at least the formal sector, even the economic survey said is doing well. There is growth in income. You have still very low interest rates. Even if it goes up by a quarter basis point, I don't think it's going to spoil the party. So what is the best case scenario you're hoping for?
So I'll be very frank. Maybe I'll just quote what our chairman, Mr. Parekh, said. He said that in his career of almost 50 years, this is the best time he has seen in real estate for the buyer and for the sellers. And the next 3 to 5 years, and I would probably raise my hand on that, while you said that it's only for next 12 months, but I can say that notwithstanding a little bit of stuff here on interest rate and this and that, I think buying a house, what COVID has done, apart from everything else, is that it has shown the importance of a house to everybody. And it is such a huge factor that it is because buying a house is not only about what is my percentage of my interest rate and my tax deductibility and so on and so forth. There's a huge emotional factor. I know that the young population that we deal with all the time, all of them 3 years back were all in this asset light mode. They are on a super asset heavy mode. Say one asset I need to have because that is all that remains with you. And I think it's a huge factor. And given the fact that the market is consolidated, financer wise, developer wise, location wise, things have become more digitized, easier. Information flow is easier. I think all of that falls under the larger fact that there is greater transparency. And greater transparency is the main thing that you need for any industry to grow. It has been a problem of our industry, and I am very, very positive, very bullish personally. We are invested, we've done all kinds of things, and we are very happy and hopefully will be part of this entire journey that is ahead of us.
Fantastic growth story. In fact, I mean, millennials are buying like nobody's business in the developed market. So, and the young have, like you rightly said, stopped depending on this asset light. We don't want to own shared economy. वो सब मतलब COVID ने काफी बदल दिया है. I think COVID has been a major silver lining for the industry. Anuj, very interesting. Madhul has actually written, and I'm going to read that out to you, and you can probably carry forward your sentiment from there. Budget has emphasized more on urbanization. I feel that would affect in a good way for our sector, but there are no major developments and also not within the timeline. So would the government consider giving basically big developments any more timelines? So I think that's what he's trying to say, but we've addressed that, Madhul, already. Hopefully you can see the recording. Anuj, your takeaway for the coming, for home buyers and for the industry. Give it to me in two buckets.
Just like Vipul, I remain very bullish. And, I agree with Vipul, it is a 3 to 5 year. I think it is structurally, it has changed. And, we're doing all these sales, Manisha. I have not seen such a market in 25 years. I had seen this briefly in 2005, 6, 7. But,
wow, really?
It was largely investor and speculator led at that time.
Correct.
This is really end user led. This is not investor led. There is. So, I haven't seen this market in 2.5 decades. So clearly there is something that is going on for this market. Alabi, Manisha, it is only for good quality developers. I think all of us do understand that consolidation is taking place and disproportionately good quality developers are getting better sales, which is also being reflected in the stock market of the developers who are listed, and hopefully a few of the other developers within this calendar year would get listed. As long as the economy continues to grow the way it is on GDP, as long as employment continues to grow, the sentiment remains positive. I do feel is that this long-term, sort of mid to long-term, as I said, is 3 to 5 years growth story for residential will remain very strong. There are some challenges, if those challenges were to come in, which are perhaps more global, more macro on liquidity, interest rate, oil prices, etc., that can, come and trouble. But at this moment in time, the way that we are looking at it seems to be fundamentally very strong, led by what, exactly Vipul said, is that the home buyer has understood the need of having a home. And make sure all these millennials, as you rightly said, is, whether it's their girlfriend or boyfriend or, their sort of parents, they are forcing them to buy a house. And, they're saying is, forget this 2% yield discussion. You need to own a roof over your head. And that is what is prompting this growth. Fortunately, Manisha, by end users and not by speculators.
Yes, I think beyond spreadsheet is now what it's come down to, that you need a hard asset, you need a safe home, and you don't want to deal with cranky landlords. I remember Vipul, going for that shoot at Signature Global and interviewing one of the IT couples who had bought a home, affordable home in Signature Global project. And you know what they told me? They said, "हम तंग हो गए थे अपने landlord से. यहाँ नहीं जाओ, वहां नहीं जाओ, कोविड में आप अंदर नहीं आ सकते, बाहर नहीं जा सकते, तो हम बहुत हैप्पी है, हमने ये ले लिया अपना फ्लैट." So, those are the kind of things which are happening now. Anyway,
no, and also, if I may add just from that.
Yes, go ahead.
Apart from the fact that there is a sentimental aspect, I think digitization is also a very big factor. Today, I can, my entire process of buying a house is significantly easier. Obviously, Anuj is already having and will have a very big role to play in the digitizing part of it. But you are not far from a time where if I have to invest X amount of money, I can choose to buy stock, I can choose to buy debt, and I can choose to buy a home and sitting on my desk while chatting with Manisha on a budget discussion. You should be able to do that. And we are very nearly there. I think almost 95% we are there. There's in a couple of states, it's even possible today to buy your home sitting where you are sitting. And just see what has happened in the stock market with the arrival of all these, platforms for trading. Yeah.
Zerodha by itself has completely changed the way investors.
So it makes a lot of difference. It makes a lot of difference to the buying behavior.
All right. So, Boman, over to you. I'm just going to thank all the panelists. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Not having television, hanging over my head. It's made a far more informal, easier conversation with everybody. So, thanks for inviting me to host this first post-budget discussion. And Boman, over to you for the concluding remarks for all your audiences and participants of MCHI and others. I can see there are people from Telangana and other places as well.
Well, thank you, Manisha. You always make it interesting. Vinita, are you giving the vote of thanks or?
Yeah, I was just going to do that. Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay,
Manisha.
sorry, I wasn't aware of it. Benita, please, of course.
No.
You and Dhaval have put in so much hard work to put this together. So yes, please. Do the
it's
honors.
the team. I'm telling you, we're blessed with a very brilliant team at CREDAI-MCHI, and all of them are brilliant, and they've burned the midnight oil to kind of turn this around. And thank you everyone for coming in today. Hiten bhai, Vipul, Anuj, President sir, and last but not the least, Manisha, I can't thank you enough for bringing out the right content and right spirit through this discussion. I don't think we would be able to kind of get even 1% of what we've brought out if it was not for you to be there on the session. And coming in directly from a flight and just going on live, I mean, kudos to you, genuinely. Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for being a part of this.
And thank you for the flight getting you there on time also. Thank you for the service.
I know, just about Vistara, skidded. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to leave you guys. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.